Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this month's version of Academy on Air. For those of you tuning in for the first time, we will be sending out a PDF of this presentation at the end. And for those of you currently on the live stream, don't forget, you can ask questions via the chat box in the top right corner of your screen. So this is our 10-minute monthly snippet on something snackable specific related to Google's products and offerings. I'm your host, Tony Singh, and today we're going to talk about discovering how Google search data can inform business intelligence. Obviously a chunky topic, but we're going to break it down and make it very digestible. A little background on myself, I've been at Google for a little over 7 years, and currently my job is to lead a team that works across Google in Canada to enable advertisers to use our performance products. So with that, we're going to start our presentation. Key topic is mining AdWords insights. So the first thing I'm going to start with is this quote: "Data is the new oil." And I'm sure many of you have actually seen articles published in 2017 with this heading or this title. Or if you were to do a simple Google Trends search, you would find out that this topic is peaking. Well, the interesting thing is if you were to do some digging and some research into this, this quote was first used back in 2006. And in fact, this is the actual quote. It was made popular by someone by the name of Clive Humby, who actually runs an agency out in the UK. The basic gist of this quote is that data, like crude, if unrefined, is useless. So you actually have to spend time refining it for it to be useful and to be able to be powering something. So why is this something that we're talking about today? Well, here's a simple Google Trends search I did for the term data scientist. So for those of you looking to update your resume, probably a useful term to put in there, or your LinkedIn profile. Now, what we're seeing is this term is super popular right now. And in fact, it's yet to peak in terms of searches being done. So what is a data scientist, right? I look at it as 4 distinct pillars, each with equal importance. First, it's how well you can pull and cleanse data. Second, it's how you actually can drive some insights from multiple data sets. Third, it's how you package those insights into some sort of easily digestible format. And fourth is how you can actually present that data or those insights back to someone who sometimes is more senior, but at the very least, it's how you present it in a more compelling fashion. Those are the 4 elements of being a data scientist that I think matter in today's world. So why are we talking about this data scientists? Well, let's relate it back to search. In 2016, we estimate that at Google, we saw over 2 trillion searches. And in fact, those 2 trillion searches were more than all the previous searches combined. 2016 also saw an interesting fact. Half of those searches globally came on a mobile device. So that's great. But how do you start to think about this data? Well, let's actually dial it back to Canada and what we're seeing in Canada. If I take a look at Q1 of this year, year over year, query volumes are up 14%. Mobile is more than 40% of all volume. Number 3 is ad click-through rates are up 16%. Now, what does all of this data mean? Well, number 1, it's pretty simple. Search is still the most important thing for querying information for most people, right? Up 14%. The way people are accessing that information is changing, with mobile being almost 50% of all volumes. And when you think about voice, that changes the dynamic as well. And finally, the ads. The ads that are appearing within our search results are more important and more useful to consumers. With ad click-through rates going up 16%, we're showing that these products make sense. So what, right? Well, here's the so what. It's that anytime you invest $1 in search, your AdWords platform is actually accumulating a lot of data for you to access. In fact, you're getting these insights in real time. Now, we're going to cover off 3 concepts in this webinar. They're regional data, trend identification, and ecosystem intelligence. Fancy terms. But let's talk about what they really mean. Number one, for the first two, where do you think your brand is the strongest? And where do you think it has the strongest potential to grow? And finally, ecosystem intelligence. Let's monitor our competition and possibly our distribution partners if we're not selling something directly ourselves. So let's deep dive into each of these three things. And the way we're going to deep dive is actually being able to mine the data in your AdWords account. The one thing I mentioned previously was all of this data is actually at your fingertips. By investing $1 in search, you're able to now accumulate the data, and you can actually slice and dice it by device, by geo. And I mean by geo, you can do it at a provincial level, a city level, and possibly down to the FSA level, which is the first 3 digits of your postal code. That's super granular data. Here's an example. Most clients structure their AdWords campaigns in a simple way. It's branded campaigns and non-branded campaigns. Well, what's interesting within the AdWords interface, and if you structure your campaigns this way, you can start to pull the data for brand campaigns at a geo level and non-brand campaigns on a geo level as well. You can then start to index this data. In Ontario, for example, are my brand queries higher as a % of total queries than category? Well, that means my brand is winning. In some areas, you might find that my category queries or my non-brand queries are actually relatively higher than my brand. Well, there's something there that I probably need to do. So this is an example of the concept, and we'll send this out as a PDF to everyone watching today, so you can actually try to replicate it yourself. But more importantly, let's take this data and do something with it. If you remember earlier, I said how you visualize and interpret the data is an equal part of being a data scientist. Well, let's put it in a format that looks like this. This is all the FSAs in Canada. And we've actually taken the data and we've graphed it and actually shown it in this map form. Now you can use any program that you choose. Some are cheap and you can actually do it very cheap and cheerful. You can do it through the Google Maps API, but being able to map this data and create a visual like this is really important because it starts to help you identify trends. So what you're seeing in the top right, you can see that little legend, 2x2 matrix, if you will. And you actually start to have these important discussions as an organization. In some regions, I'm seeing my brand strength high. In some regions, I'm seeing my category strength high. Now, what would happen if you start to layer in sales at this region, at this regional level? How does that look? And secondly, you can start to have broader discussions. Hey, I noticed that in certain parts of northern Quebec, category strength is really high, but my brand strength isn't that high. Do I care about this market? Are there in-quarter things that I could do tactically to shift dollars to more event-based tactics that can start to shift my brand strength? These are some of the interesting discussions you can start to have as an organization that is based on these search insights. Second, trend identification. Well, within the AdWords interface, there are some simple graphs that you can start to do right away. If you look at this graph here, you're seeing a click-through rate spike. Well, then the next question you can start to think about, and the thing you have to start to maybe layer in is, did we do a national TV buy in around that time? If so, when was it? Does it correlate to that spike in click-through rate? Knowing that search reach a large % of Canadians, a large % of Canadians are actively searching, it starts to become a nice beacon of how you can actually augment other pieces of data to get a full picture view. You're already doing this with your analytics tools, being able to drill down in Google Analytics or Omniture through device and geo and campaign. Well, all we're suggesting is within AdWords, you can do it today as well. So why not start here? Finally, ecosystem intelligence. Now I mentioned before that if you sell a product, but you actually don't sell direct off your website. Let's say, for example, I sell Tony's water bottles, but I have to rely on distribution partners to get my product out there to the masses. Well, what I'm able to do now, if as a business owner, and what I think I should be doing, is coming up with a select list of keywords that matters to my product and my service the most. What I would then do is say, okay, distribution partners A, B, and C, I want you to advertise on these keywords. In fact, I want some of my vendor dollars that I'm supplying to you to go to fund these keywords. Well, why is that important? Well, within the AdWords interface on those keywords, you're actually able to see your impression share, the average position, and the percent of time those ads are actually showing for your distribution partners. Since you're so reliant on them to distribute your product, you need to now inform yourself of how well they're doing and how well they're pushing your product versus someone else's. Well, Adwords allows you to do that. Second example, because you can buy any keyword on search, you're able to buy other brands in your space or category terms that are of interest to you. And why is this useful? Well, if you're looking to do that BDI-CDI analysis I stated earlier, you can actually do it on competitive terms. Somewhat interesting. Second, let's say you're looking to get into a new space, a new area, and you're thinking, well, I'm not sure if there's enough volume or there's enough market demand. Buying those keywords and having them in a search account allows you to get impression share volume. That impression share volume, you can now get query volumes theoretically of how many people are actually searching for those things. And then you can cut that at a regional level, determine what markets matter for that product or service you're thinking about introducing. All really important things. So with that, I'm only touching the tip of the iceberg. And so what I would actually suggest is that we actually can probably come up with a lot more use cases to actually think about. Now, we're going to go to a few questions from the doorway. First question is from George. Hey, Google, are you suggesting we don't need to spend money on third-party data resources? That is not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is, at Google, we think you should continue to spend your money on things that matter the most to you. If you're using third-party sources today, continue to use them. But why not augment the investment in marketing you're making by leveraging that data and seeing how it compares to stuff you're already buying? Make sense? I think so. Number two, Claude. How often should I review the data on a CDI, BDI analysis? Should I be setting a goal for myself to change these metrics? Good question. Now, BDI, CDI, and we'll send out the deck as well, so you have it for reference. I actually look at it as a balance sheet. You would actually do that analysis once a month, maybe once a quarter, and then you would actually take a look at, am I changing it over time in the areas that matter to me? That's not the best way to use this, but fundamentally, it's a broader business discussion because it's going to involve you making possible marketing changes across your entire media mix, and then where the business priorities for you lie. Next is coming from Jamal. My budget on search is small in comparison to other mediums. How reliable is this data? Well, we hear that quite a bit. And the example I always give is when the Gallup poll does a poll of who's going to be the next prime minister, they actually will survey maybe 400 to 500 people in Canada to make a reasonable estimate of who our next prime minister is going to be. I believe the number of Nielsen households that actually report on TV viewing is about 2,200 in Canada. So the fact that search touches 80% of all Canadians, I would argue that you don't need much data in order to make strong directional decisions. Finally, from Mary, how does this help me invest in mobile? Well, I would say that one of the biggest things we've seen, and this is a much broader topic, is that for mobile, we know that it doesn't convert as high as desktop, right? We actually see, if you use various sources, mobile probably converts at about 80% the rate of desktop. That's a no-no. What's interesting is that's okay. We've had about 50. I would argue for mobile, we've had maybe 2, maybe 3 years to really perfect that experience. So how can this be useful? Well, cutting all this data can let you understand conversion rate by device plus geo. So you can actually start to, if conversion is ultimately what you're trying to drive, you can actually cut the data and then trigger your marketing in those areas where mobile conversion rates are at a point where it makes sense for you to invest in. All right. With that, I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us today. As I said, we will be sharing this deck with everyone who's joined the via PDF with everyone who's joined the Hangout. And I look forward to seeing you all next time on Academy on Air. Thank you.